So let's talk about the stock market today. Waking up this morning with stock market futures plunging. And look at these numbers, folks. So just early morning, just in the past 24 hours, stocks are down big time. Of course, all of this comes on the heels of President Trump saying that the stock market is doing great under me. If you vote for Biden, it's going to be a stock market collapse, right? Everything is just going to collapse if you vote for Biden. This morning, NASDAQ futures down, S&P 500 in blue there, down as of just before showtime this morning. U.S. stock futures fell on Wednesday as rising coronavirus infections shook investors' confidence. The economic recovery, which has stalled and ground to a halt. Futures tied to the S&P 500 dropped 1.4%, suggesting that a broader index is going to continue to retreat for the third consecutive session. So now President Trump said that, just to be clear, that if Vice President Biden is elected, that we would see stocks plunging. Does that hold water before the election? Are you allowed to blame Biden before the election? He's not president. So why is the stock market tanking? Well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, and most importantly, is a lack of stimulus. I love this quote from Hugh Gimber. He's a global market strategist at JP Morgan. Listen to this insight. He says, "A month ago, the narrative in the market was very much that a lockdown would be limited and targeted and would have a smaller impact on the economy. But now what we're seeing is a broader concerns that lockdowns might be wider and have a much wider impact." Yeah, because now we're seeing record-setting, almost 500,000 cases in a week of coronavirus cases. And cases spiking all over the country right now. Europe going back under lockdown. France going under lockdown. Scotland, I love this story this morning. Scotland is allowing you to go to the pub, but no alcohol. What's the point? Who wants to go to the pub with no alcohol in Scotland, of all places? Italy, which has been, this is the confounding thing, I think. This is how I see it. I find it completely confounding, is that Italy had nationwide mask mandate, everyone in the streets wearing a mask, and yet now they're seeing significant spikes again. What gives? What gives? So COVID, stimulus, a lack of stimulus, and the craziness around the election. So what's going to happen on November 3rd? One of the reasons the stocks are tumbling this morning is because of concerns about what happens with mail-in votes. If on November 3rd we don't have all of the mail-in votes counted, will there be state-by-state court battles demanding at the Supreme Court levels in each state? Will it go all the way to the Supreme Court? What will happen? Let's say you postmark your mail-in ballot on election day. So you've postmarked it November 3rd, right? Which, by the way, is the same thing that happens with taxes, right? You have to postmark your ballot November 3rd or on April 15th so that the IRS doesn't ding you for a delay in paying your taxes. Why shouldn't the same thing apply here? I've postmarked my mail-in ballot by November 3rd. We should give it till November 6th to have it counted. So questions about that. Questions about whether or not these ballots will be counted, whether or not absentee ballots will be counted if they don't arrive in time. Praise to the post office right now, working around the clock, doing what they can from what I'm hearing. So good on them for that. Markets slid lower this week overall on a number of uncertainties, of course, worsening coronavirus cases, stringent restrictions that are now popping up, and what will that mean to smaller businesses? But of course, all of this is tied to GDP. All of this is tied to consumer confidence, consumer spending. And so if we don't have stimulus, which there is no stimulus, despite what YouTubers will tell you. There are a number of court cases right now. There are a number of things that the Senate is focused on. Number one is getting reelected. So they are traveling, they are visiting their home states, they are worrying about getting reelected. That's the main focus. They are not worried about passing a stimulus. Did you see Ted Cruz's interview the other day on Axios, where he talks about this massive debt and that we just can't afford to do anything? He thinks it's dire if we spend any more money. But it's okay to keep bailing out Wall Street, $5 trillion. Investors also had been hoping that talks between the White House and Democrats over a fresh stimulus package would result in agreement before Election Day. That sent stocks tumbling on the backs of some comments from Mitch McConnell yesterday that there's no stimulus. There's nothing. Stephen Mnuchin saying, no, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Those hopes have now faded completely. So there will not be a stimulus before Election Day. But if you have your money tied up in a 401k right now, I mean, this is where you should be concerned. You have your money, your future, your family's future tied up in some sort of retirement account tied to this volatility. Talk to your financial advisor, talk to your HR director at work, talk to your person who handles setting up your 401k at work and have a conversation with them. Find out how you can move this out under the CARES Act now. You have the ability to move out up $100,000 out of your 401k into something more stable that performs for you, like real estate, like precious metals. Heck, like even moving it over into cryptocurrency account that's backed by cryptocurrency like Outlet. All of these options on the table right now. Or investing it in companies that aren't tied to this broader recession. Making sure you don't own airline stocks. Make sure you don't have money in the hospitality industry or things that are even loosely tied to those vectors. Very important. So, big concerns right now in the stock market about a lack of stimulus, where they see this presidential election going, which, the fact that even Apple, by the way, Apple's holding another event in November, likely to announce their new MacBooks with their own Apple Silicon chips inside. I'm very excited about this. And they would normally have had an event like at the beginning of November. But because and then we've got Thanksgiving, right? So they didn't even want to hold their event anywhere near the November 3rd election, not even like the following week, because that's how these big businesses are seeing it right now. It's going to be a disaster. Unless of course there's a big landslide on November 3rd. If there's a landslide in favor one way or the other on November 3rd, then we won't have this tumultuousness. Things will hopefully settle down a little bit. That's what I'm hoping for. But if we end up in this widespread court battle where you have, like a George W. Bush style stealing of an election in Florida, hanging chads and lawyers every day meeting at the Tallahassee courthouse and Capitol building, etc., or Miami-Dade County, God knows, then we're in for a world of hurt. But just look at Europe. I mean, I am concerned what's going on right now in Europe, and I think that's why you're seeing some of this sentiment right now in the broader market. Germany going under further lockdowns this morning. Germany was supposed to be this great bastion of hope, right? We kept hearing from Angela Merkel. We kept hearing from the scientists. We're going to just follow the science, testing, tracing in Germany. And now Germany is a hotspot. Germany's having huge problems. Italy's having huge problems. The Czech Republic, the UK, Spain, France. And a lot of these countries put on masks and had mask mandates. So it's just like, I think we're all in this like fatigue right now, don't you? Do you guys feel like we're in this like virus fatigue? What are we supposed to do? It's like no one has a real plan. I don't hear anyone talking about a real plan. I don't hear Joe Biden talking about having a national mask mandate. Okay, yeah, Italy's tried that. Vaccine or herd immunity? My gosh, is that really our only choice at this point? And even then, we hear about these antibodies vanishing after 4 and 5 months. So Am I going to have to get vaccinated every year or every 6 months in order to make sure that I don't get coronavirus? That's why the market is crazy this morning. That's why we're seeing these numbers this morning. All you need to do is look at those three factors: stimulus, COVID, election, to see why the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 plummeting in early hours this morning. It's like every day my wife says, man, it went down another 600 points, another 200 points, another 300 points. Again, do you want your money tied up in this? Please be smarter. Please be smarter.